Welcome in, friends and future friends. Forgot the microphone for some reason. Yeah. To the Sports and the World podcast. However you're watching, whether you're watching us on YouTube, watching on the Twitter, and we're trying out Facebook today. So we'll see how that works up. I'm Ladarius Brent. Hope all of you are well and safe out there. Lots to talk about, lots to kind of unwrap. We're gonna recap week one NFL season. I'm gonna go through game by game, just some thoughts. We're gonna preview week two, starting with specifically, we're gonna talk about Thursday night football. We're gonna talk about college football week one. We're gonna talk about week two of college football, I should say. I have some thoughts on Angel Reese and whatever else comes up. Because, like I say, this is your show, guys, and drop your comments and your thoughts in the chat. I'll be make sure to shout you out in the process. So let's jump right on in. First and foremost, I know you see me wear my Seattle Storm shirt, but I'm proud of my Seattle Storm. We made the playoffs. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of sweated out a little bit, but luckily we got in. So shout out to Madam President, shout out to Sky, shout out especially Erica Wheeler, shout out to her, shout out to the team, to the Storm for that. Let's just jump into week one in the NFL. Listen, we learned a lot about teams. I know it's week one, so I'm not telling you to hit the panic button or anything like that. I think there should be a concern, I think there's some. If your team won, cool, but you might still have questions. If your team lost, then you're like, hey, you start season 0-1. But statistically speaking, the last couple of Super Bowl winners have won in week one. So if your team took an L, cancel the parade, cancel the Super Bowl party. but let's talk about it. Let's talk about Thursday night. Let's talk about Dallas and Philly. And listen, listen. Like if you're Jalen Carter, like let's talk about it. You can't do what you did. And I know there's some footage that came out and said that, maybe Dak potentially stat first. But listen, 9 times out of 10, like most of the time they'll catch the second person doing it. And that's not justifying it in any capacity. But yet, listen, Philly, listen, it was a close game. Like people thinking like, oh, Dallas is gonna blow, is gonna lose big. No, Dallas's offense is don't tell them that. They're pretty good. Dak and CD maybe didn't come up as clutch, but we saw George Perkins, we saw Jake Ferguson, and they looked like they had a run game. And that was a major concern of their offense last season. And defensively was the question mark. And outside of like Jalen Hurts, it was the Jalen Hurts show, essentially with 2 rushing touchdowns. It still came down to the wire. Listen, the classic, these divisional games, like usually they're typically close. And anytime I see, like, I saw the spread was like as high as 8.5, I said, no, take the plus. Most of the time. If you did that, it's like even like Cincinnati and Cleveland, like you take the Browns plus. Or you could have took the Browns up right. They made field goals, which we'll also talk about. Listen, Kansas City, like losing to the Chargers. Listen, people don't want to. If you're a Chargers, if you're a Chiefs fan, you might want to turn away for a minute. Grab yourself something to drink, come back and join me. Like entering this season, I still had doubts about last season and how their season ended. And sometimes you can have that Super Bowl hangover. Being a Falcons fan, I remember like that 28-3, and then when we lost that Super Bowl, it didn't feel like we were the same team. And that can sometimes linger. The Super Bowl hangover, things of that nature. And it kind of felt that, listen, this Chargers team kind of flipped the script essentially. Justin Herbert went 25 of 34, 318 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. Quentin Johnston, the guy that we weren't sure about, my guy had 2 of those touchdowns. Keenan Allen looked good. Ladd McConkey looked good. But usually we thought this was going to be a lot. We're going to get a heavy dose of Amorion Hampton, and we didn't. And, it just like Justin Herbert against a very good Chiefs defense, by the way. That's these like that the Chiefs defense, carried the Chiefs to that Super Bowl, like whether you want to admit to it or not. And good win for like Kansas City. It's not a lot for them to win the division. I'm not. I'm looking at these other teams. I'm like, I don't know. Every other team in the division won except Kansas City. So I'm not saying like the Raiders are going. All I'm saying is that don't be shocked if the Chiefs have to compete for a wild card spot. Don't be super shocked. I know it's week one. It's probably one of the week one, like, oh my God, situations. But don't be shocked if that kind of reality hits. So shifting gears, listen, I'm getting all my electronic material out. So when we look at the situation, let's shift gears. Let's talk about like a couple of games. Like it just looked bad. If you're a Dolphins fan, there's legit cause for concern, I feel, because listen, it was an emotional game, celebrating the Colts celebrating their own losing Jim Irsay. But to put up 8 points into a 14-23 a touchdown, he was pulled for Zach Wilson. Daniel Jones looked like Peyton Manning, like 22 of 29, 272 in a touchdown. Now I'm not saying like the Colts are going to go on this all-time magical run, but now we start questioning, the Dolphins, and we start questioning going into the season. We knew the defense was going to be an issue. It's been an issue, in South Beach for quite some time, so not a big surprise. But at some point, I'm not saying, if it doesn't turn around, because they play New England, I believe, in week 2. Like, you can't start out 0-2. And, both teams need this W. So that's why I say it's going to be a very, 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 very good game, because both teams are in a must-win sort of situation. So I don't know. That could be a game to kind of watch, because it just kind of feels that for Miami, I don't want to say must win, but if you're down 0-2 and you're down a divisional loss, because I think New England's a pretty good football team despite the outcome in week 1. So and wait, folks, I went dark. Sorry. My freaking lamp. Hang on. Live television. So hang on. I know you'll see me back in a few. Hang on. It's like, wait, are we done? Okay. Hang on. Pause. So, hang on. I'm still here, folks. Just want to get back to get some kind of light here. Well, anyway, while I figure it out, I'll keep talking. Look, I think for the whole Miami situation, I think the Patriots-Dolphins game is going to be very interesting on a lot of different levels here. And listen, I can't get over this darkness. I'm sorry. Hang on. And okay, come on, work with me. Shouldn't have moved anything. Let's see. Or hang on, let's try this. Hang on. I had a Murder She Wrote moment here. Let's try this. Yeah. Is it out? Oh dear. Okay. There we go. We're back. Sorry about that. It's like it was an in-person, like a rain delay. We're back. I apologize for that. Now, we talked about Miami. Sticky situation there, but another big issue was kickers. Listen, starting with my Falcons. Listen, Younghoe Koo, And it's been an issue with kicking since last season. And losing the game on a field goal. And listen, I'm not one to defend kickers. I'm not trying to defend kickers or anything of that nature. But I do find it interesting that it's like it's not been a consistent, it's been a continuous issue. Like, go ask the Niners with Jake Moody. Like, it's been a consistent issue. And I think for the 49ers situation, it was hard for them to waive the kicker because they drafted him. And I'm not saying there's still stock and value in drafting a kicker. Do not get me wrong. But it kind of leads into questioning, the value of the kicker and how people think kicking or anybody can do it. It's not an exact science. Like, because like, oh, if anybody could do it, yeah. But we saw on Sunday where kicking cost games and nearly cost games. Like, even in that same Tampa Bay game, Chase McLaughlin missed an extra point that made it a 3-point game that gave Atlanta a chance to tie the game. And you look out, Jake Moody, similar situation. So it kind of feels like kicking is not an exact science. It's not a big thing, but it is. And then the kicker, Schmidt, for the Browns, that hurts because Cleveland could have won that football game. Cleveland could have legit won that football game. Missed kicks. And they had Dustin Hopkins, who I had on my fantasy team last season. And listen, whether it's financial or whatever decision they made, they parted ways with him. So what's interesting now, going back to the Falcons situation, after the game, Younghoe Koo didn't show up to speak to the media. And I'm like, this is not going to end well for Younghoe Koo, because at some point we already had a kicker on the practice squad, and we had Lenny Creek signed on the practice squad, and then we signed Parker Romo, and who's an excellent kicker on Minnesota's practice squad, I believe. You can't keep 3 kickers. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is the moment where you have to say, Younghoe Koo, you're done. And maybe he's done as we're speaking. So I'm just double checking. Just double checking live to see if he's still part of the of the Falcons. And it seems that as we're speaking right now, as we're talking, to give live updates, he's still a member of the team. He's part of the Patriots kicking squad, but he did play for Minnesota to John Parker Romo. Here's the issue. You can be loyal to a fault, but kickers, it's a huge issue. And like if they change the kicking balls or things like that, but the core of the issue is that kicking. Listen, you on one hand, yeah, you have one thing to do, but it's the pressure situation, and it comes down to, can the kicker handle the pressure? I don't think it's not the issue of kickers missing the kicks because they're not terrible. They're not because they're terrible kickers. It's that, can they meet the moment? And that's the crux of the issue. And like with Jake Moody in San Francisco, they drafted this kid out of Michigan, and they're invested. Like, this is our kicker. This is our guy. And that parting the ways made it harder, because think about this. And it transitions into the Buffalo and Baltimore game. Think about this. Buffalo signed 41-year-old Matt Prater because Tyler Bass is on IR. And half the team didn't know who Matt Prater was. They thought he was a coach. Kicks the game-winning field goal. Buffalo, they cap off the 15-point comeback to win it. And they had no idea who the hell Matt Prater was. So take that as you will. And for kicking, and for anything, it's about meeting the moment. And it just goes to show you that kicking is not probably an exact science. Like, there's pressure. Like it's in your job description, but it's, I don't know. It's tough but at some point, I think Raheem Morris has to be honest. If Romo works out, you got to cut Younghoe Koo, because we've tried. 2 seasons. We've tried. This is the fan in me now saying, we've tried it. It doesn't work. We got Romo, then we still got Krieg on the practice squad. So, like, there's a reason why you signed a kicker to the practice squad. There's a reason, because I don't think there was confidence in Koo entering the season, and Koo did himself no favors by missing the kick and not showing up initially to meet the reporters after the game. And it cost the game. Now, I'm not saying we would win in overtime and won it, but it's the opportunity that we could have won it. That's the major takeaway there. And speaking of kickers and talking about Matt Prater kicking the game winner, that Buffalo, listen, what we saw last Sunday night was potentially preview that either the AFC, these teams are going to face off in the playoffs, whether it's in the championship round or the divisional round. Those are the two best teams in the AFC. And I kind of felt, a lot of people kind of felt that way entering the season. Lamar did his thing. Lamar went 14-19, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. But let me tell you something about this Derrick Henry guy. 18 carries, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. And people can talk about, the fumble, the greats fumble. Now, am I saying that it's not getting him off the hook? That's not going to make Derrick Henry feel better. But all I'm saying is that wasn't the sole reason they lost. And it circles me back to John Harbaugh. And I preached about this last year. I preached about, we're always talking about Lamar Jackson and how he, we need to have a conversation about John Harbaugh. Here's why. I read this stat earlier when I was on my buddy C Doubles in the show. I'm going to read it to you again. 17 blown double-digit second-half leads, the most by any head coach since 1991. And the 15-point blown lead is tied for the 4th highest blown lead in Ravens franchise history. We need to have, when we talked about Mike Tomlin last season, we're going to run him out of Pittsburgh, and we're not. Listen, Mike Tomlin is 8-11 in the playoffs. Yeah, John Harbaugh has a slightly better playoff record, but here's the thing: they both have Super Bowls, and they've been with their teams for almost 2 decades. And the thing with Tomlin is that he hasn't had a losing season. Harbaugh has 2. Mike Tomlin has it. A couple of those were 8-8 when we were playing 16 games. But the fact of the matter is, he's been consistent. Now, I just want that, both of these guys have Super Bowls. But the narrative has to be discussed when we talk about John Harbaugh. It's like, why do we want to fire Mike Tomlin or run Mike Tomlin out of Pittsburgh? Because I tell you right now, hypothetically, if both Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh are available, who do you think teams are going to pursue? Mike Tomlin. If franchises would fire their coach if they knew they had an opportunity to get Mike Tomlin. But if they like what they have, they'll stick it out. And that to me is the thing with John Harbaugh. Is that this is not the first time we've seen a lead blown under his watch. Lamar did great. Derrick Henry did great. The defense, listen, when you're facing Josh Allen, I don't know what you can do, because Josh Allen, let me tell you, 33 of 46, 394, 2 touchdowns. He also had 6 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. He had 3 total touchdowns. Trying to stop, a guy like Josh Allen is never easy. It's not an exact science. But I'm not saying, let's fire John Harbaugh. But what I'm saying is that when we have this conversation, if we're going to be loud about Mike Tomlin, let's be loud about John Harbaugh. Because if he has Lamar Jackson. He has a 2-time league MVP who finished 2nd behind Allen in the MVP voting last season as his quarterback. And the best you could do is you can't get this man to a Super Bowl? If he can't get this man to a Super Bowl, and I hope Baltimore has to get to the AFC Championship game. Because if not, Baltimore fans will be like, oh man, is John Harbaugh the guy? And he has a Super Bowl, just like Mike Tomlin. The only difference is Mike Tomlin is 8-11 in the playoffs. John Harbaugh is 13-11. That's the difference. They each have a Super Bowl. They've been with their franchises for almost 2 decades. They have success. They're probably on route to be Hall of Fame coaches. Don't get me wrong. But I want the energy for John Harbaugh. I'm not bashing John Harbaugh. But what I'm conjecturing is that when we have the conversation about Mike Tomlin, I want to have it about John Harbaugh too, especially about expectations. Because Mike Tomlin has won with Russell Wilson and he won with Justin Fields, and their starting quarterback they started week 1 with other teams. He has Mason Rudolph. He had Duck Hodges. Like, he's won with dudes. Like, they had Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is started out, he was with Cleveland. Now he's with the Raiders. For whatever reason. Like, it didn't work out with Kenny Pickett. But the point is that when it comes to John Harbaugh, and if he starts slipping up in December, January, I want to have that same conversation. I'm not saying, hey, let's fire the guy. I'm just saying, let's have that conversation. Push come to shove. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to leave it there because I could go longer, but I'm going to leave it there. Now, shifting to Monday Night Football, the Minnesota Vikings looked cooked entering the fourth quarter. 21 points in the fourth quarter. J.J. McCarthy looked fantastic. 2 touchdowns. He did have the interception. 13-20, 143. And Minnesota gets the win. But it's a credit to Kevin O'Connell and how great he is. Like, when they call him the quarterback whisperer, like, it's thrown around a lot. He's very well. Look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold got a payday after one of the best seasons of his career. He's in Seattle. He's worked with Matthew Stafford, helped Matthew Stafford out. Like, Kevin O'Connell has the resume. And that's why it was easy for them to let go of Sam Darnold. Fiscally, they could have said, they could have given him they could have tried to give him a 1 year, a massive 1 year, 25 million. But they said, we're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. He's our guy. Early on, it pays off. Listen, there's some things J.J. has to work on, obviously. But the fact of the matter is that this Vikings team, their bread and butter has always been defense. And drafting J.J. McCarthy was not by grand design. Kevin O'Connell liked him, so he took him. And unfortunately, he got hurt. And that's how we got Sam Darnold, and you know the rest. But that game was a testament of 2 things. We kind of saw what we're going to see from the Bears. Like, I'm not going to call Caleb Williams a bust. I'm not on that board yet. Ben Johnson has work to do because, listen, people, it's obvious, but you can be a victim of bad coaching. And that's been the case in Chicago for a while, respectfully. It's like great coordinators, but not coordinating as head coaches. That's the issue. And for Caleb Williams, that's why they went out and got a Ben Johnson, because they saw the work he did with Detroit and Jared Goff. And like, if he can do that for Jared Goff, like, Detroit looks a mess. You want to know how coordinators don't matter? They lost 2, and they looked absolutely terrible. Their interior looked terrible. The trick plays where they couldn't do anything. And you lose 2 coordinators, that's going to happen. That's what makes this NFC North a very interesting division because, listen, Green Bay looks kind of like the cream of the crop. But it's a long season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But what I will say is that Minnesota-Green Bay games might be a little bit more important. Might be a little bit more, because I think those are the 2 teams I would say has the inside track to win the division for 2 different reasons. I think not Kevin McCarthy, I'm thinking of the Speaker of the House. I'm thinking politics. J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell, that's going to work because Kevin O'Connell is great with quarterbacks and have a great defense. Brian Flores and that defense is going to be fine. Now, when I think about Green Bay, I think the addition of Micah Parsons is going to help. I think, Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator for Green Bay, I think he's going to figure. We saw how you can just scheme Micah Parsons to get to the quarterback. And already had a great defense last season. Jordan Love, if Jordan Love and that offense can figure it out, they're going to be fine. Like, there was questions about the wide receiver room, but I think those will figure it out. With Chicago, I just need to see more. It's one game, so I'm not sitting there going to bash Caleb Williams, but I need to see what Ben Johnson. That's a lot of work to do. It's not defending. That's a lot of work to do. And for Detroit, they have to adjust with two new coordinators, and that's never easy. It's like life's about adjustment. Sometimes when you lose certain things, it's about the adjustment process. So I'm very curious that, in that regard. And you kind of look ahead at week 2 of the NFL season. It looks like I mentioned earlier. Listen, Washington and Green Bay face off on Thursday Night Football. I have a preview of that game out. You can on my Twitter and TikTok. There's _Brown, Instagram. There's _Brown. It's on my Facebook. It's on my Facebook page and on the Sports in the World podcast Facebook page as well, so you can check that out as well. So, looking ahead to week 2, like once again, I'm not going to highlight all the games because if I could, we'd be here like hours. And then I value you guys' time. Like I said, you drop your comments and your thoughts of any questions, fantasy or otherwise. But when you look at the schedule, it's very interesting. Like I mentioned New England and Miami. Like some folks like, oh, it's not, but like if Miami wants to have a shot, they got to beat New England. And then another divisional game, like listen, Buffalo's playing the Jets. How the Jets going to respond there after that close loss to Pittsburgh? Cleveland and Baltimore. God bless Cleveland. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. And the games that I'll be previewing down the road I'll be previewing as well this coming week. Philly at the Chiefs. That game becomes interesting because I'm not saying if Kansas City goes down 0-2, is it panic time? If you're a Chiefs fan, I'm saying you don't have to panic. I'm not saying panic. All I'm saying is that Phillies team didn't, listen, week 1, you're figuring things out. That's still a big time game. Atlanta, Minnesota. Can Minnesota ride the wave and beat a Falcons team who lost close, defensively looked solid in spots? And what we're going to see from Michael Penix versus what does Brian Flores have for Michael Penix and offensive coordinator Zach Robinson to face there on Sunday Night Football. And the doubleheader on Monday night, it's the Bucs traveling to the Lone Star State to face the Texans. Interesting matchup there. Can Baker versus D'Amico Ryans and that defense and CJ Stroud, how's the offensive line going to look against that Buccaneers defense who loves to blitz? And the other game, the Chargers coming off the win, they're going to face the Las Vegas Raiders in the second game on the doubleheader on Monday night. Very curious, very, very curious to see Justin Herbert, the man. Will we start seeing them go back to the run game for the Raiders? What are we going to see offensively? Ashton Genty versus that Chargers stout defense. So there's a lot of questions to be asked, and hopefully we'll get those answers in those games coming up in week 2. Now, shifting gears, let's talk a little college. Look, I'm gonna get it out of the way. Not a great week for my Gators. You want to talk about me saying some very unprofessional Christian things? Yeah, that was me. It just felt at times where like we don't lose to schools like that. And it's the way we lost. And it ties into discipline. And I always preach this. Discipline. It's like this. Like I was upset at that penalty in the Falcons-Bucks game with Ruke. Like with the rough in the pass. Like the rules are the rules. You can't touch them. But that's yardage, and that puts them closer to the red zone. And where they can get points. And they did. In the Gators game, like you don't spit. It's like what agitated me about that, not just as a fan of the Gators fan, but as a fan of football, like the spitting. Like spitting is very disrespectful. Like people think when they point a finger in your chest, like look, you point a finger in my chest, you spit on me. There are certain actions where you're like it's gonna trigger. I'd rather let you get in my face, but for the love of God, don't spit on me because that's the ultimate sign of disrespect, in my opinion. And I cannot believe that in 2025 that has to be an issue because that cost Florida the game, and also that run they gave up to didn't help either. It's discipline. Oh, by the way, they got to face LSU, and the fact that they're only 7.5 point dogs at this moment, the line may move. It's shocking to me. It's shocking. And the over under is 47.5. And I might, if the Gators can get some offense, I would smash the over. I would consider the over. Now the plus 7.5. I don't know if I'm there yet. I might be there by Friday. I might be there by Friday. But listen, you look at the quarterbacks. Listen, DJ Lagway versus Garrett Nussmeier. That's the matchup I'm looking at. I love quarterbacks. I love talking about quarterbacks. What are we going to see from Lagway? What are they going to be throwing? What is LSU going to be throwing at DJ Lagway? And if you're the Gators, what are you going to do with Nussmeier? Because when he's in the pocket, he leads. Well, it's early on, but he leads college football Division I in both attempts with 79 and then completions at 53. So he can get the ball to the receiver. He has a talented receiving core. Great. Like this Brian Kelly roster is the best rosters he's had in a while, and that's including Notre Dame. Like if I say this is a championship caliber roster, this is it right here. So that's something to kind of look at and consider. Like defensively for LSU is Harold Perkins. I see him on the screen. I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons-esque, but your focus should always be on Harold Perkins when he's on the field. Now, staying in the SEC, number 6 Georgia travels to Neyland Stadium to face Tennessee plus 4.5. Like it's not. It's predicting / betting. I don't know how you guys may feel. We'll see how it goes. But this matchup is interesting from this point of view. Georgia has dominated this series. They've won 8 straight against Tennessee. But Tennessee, Joey Aguilar, completing the ball 66 a little over 66% of his passes, and they have 8 sacks. And I know you know who they play, but this Tennessee defense, this ain't your mom and daddy's volunteer team under Josh Heupel. And Kirby Smart, listen, he got Gunnar Stockton, and can he handle going into Neyland? And how's this Georgia offense going to look? Because Tennessee's defense has to step up to that next level to make this game competitive. Because if Georgia gets any sort of momentum, they can get out of hand rather quickly. Joey Aguilar, this might be a low-key, like a shootout game, depending on how the first half will tell the story in terms of like what the score is, and if there's any. If it's a high-scoring game, it's about the adjustments. Low-scoring game, it's about which offense can kind of pick it up and figure. It's all about adjustments in this game, whether it's with the big lead at halftime or whether it's a low-scoring game at halftime. It's about which team makes potentially the second half adjustments to win this football game. I'm not telling you to slam Tennessee at I'm speaking to the microphone. I'm not telling you to slam Tennessee at plus 4.5. I think it's on FanDuel and other. It might vary other places, but this Tennessee team is not like other Tennessee teams, and there could be some vulnerability and some suspectability. Am I using my words in that regard? So that regard. And then the final game I want to talk about college football. And this is for my friend. I hope I get her on the show at some point. I want to get people to come on this show. It's about reaching out. I reach out. People are busy. Life happens. But this is for Amy Trask. To me, a trailblazer in the NFL. Working with Al Davis, become the first president. This is for her. Minnesota at Cal. She loves her Cal Bears plus 2.5. Minnesota, yeah, they had Darius Taylor, but it's going to be a challenge against that Golden Bears front seven. I think Justin Wilcox, who former Volunteers defensive coordinator, head coach at Cal. I think he'll have a plan in place to kind of make Tennessee throw the football. Excuse me, make Minnesota throw the football. That's the key to this matchup. For Cal, their quarterback, a little over 69.1 complete percent. It's not disrespecting his name, but I don't want to disrespect him by butchering his name. He's great. But Cal plus 2.5 in Berkeley? I don't know. I'm just saying, if I had to slam a plus 2.5, if I had to slam on an underdog this week, it would be Cal. Like, Minnesota's good. This feels like the line tells me it's a little bit of a coin flip, but giving the edge to Minnesota. But I like Cal. Give me Cal in that game. Give me Cal. Call me like this is for Amy. This is for Amy Trask. Listen, if she rides the golden Marshawn Lynch, it's for them. I know Aaron Rodgers played, but I'm talking about Marshawn Lynch and Amy Trask. Two of my favorite Cal Bears. Now, shifting from the NFL a bit. And by the way, friends and future friends, thank you if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to enjoy the Sports and the World podcast. Like and listen and subscribe to this episode and every episode of the Sports and the World podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And once again, much appreciated taking time out of your day to join me. It feels like I thought the show was going to be longer, but it's not. I guess I got through my points quick. I did a show earlier with my buddy CW. We talked wrestling, and check us out there every Wednesday. The show's going to be every Wednesday, so I'll be, pulling double duty on Wednesdays. It feels like moving forward, unless schedule change or unless it becomes too much. But I want to get out of here by talking about Angel Reese. And I want to talk about specifically about, the reports that, her comments about the Chicago Sky and about the organization. And I hear people talk about, they bring up like her quote unquote stats and blah, 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 blah. That to me, it's blah, blah, blah. Like, she's one of the league's better rebounders. She's always been a great rebounder. Scoring, like, to me, she's like Cam Brink for the Sparks. Like, to me, scoring, both of them will pick up on the scoring. Because if you can, defense is a hard thing to grasp, and they're both pretty good at it. And they're both pretty good at getting the board. Cam's great at the blocks, but that's a different conversation for another day. But here's where I defend Angel Reese. Is that when you look at the Chicago Sky, like, this is their 20th season of basketball. Of those 20 seasons, they made 9 play and they won a championship. When they won back in 2021. But here's the thing. Over the last 3 seasons, now going back in their franchise's history, right now they're 10-33. They're on pace to lose the second most games in their 20-year. They're 10-33. They're 10-33. And I understand it's Tyler Marsh. It's a whole new regime. I understand. But they're next to last in offensive rating, and they're last in defensive rating. And they're last in net rating at minus 13.2. This team is not good. And it may feel like when you look at the roster, yeah, there's a lot of veteran presence on here. But there's some youth. Like, you still have Angel Reese. They got Camila Cardoso. They just drafted, they drafted, Haley Van Leet. They have Maddie Westbeld, both rookies. And they have Skinny Usen. So it's a young roster. But of course they got vets like Rebecca Allen and Elizabeth Witt. But here's the issue. People were saying like, well, or what she's saying was disrespectful, and it's like, here's the thing. They have one game left in the regular season, and they're going to face the New York Liberty. The game is meaningless to both of them because the Liberty are obviously in and the Sky are out. And here's the thing. And if I'm going to read to you what Angel Reese said, and explain to you on the back end why I don't necessarily I don't take issue with all of what she said. And so this is what Angel Reese said. She said it, I think, a couple of days, almost a week ago. And like, I'll give you the rundown. Like, basically, she said this. She said she told the Chicago Tribune that she is, quote, not selling for the same bleep, starts with S, we did this year. And the team has to get great players, or she might consider moving on. And then she talked about the Pointer situation with Courtney Vandersloot, saying we can't rely on Courtney Vandersloot to come up from ACL tear at the age she's at. She'll be a great asset for, but we can't rely on that. We need someone probably a little bit younger with some experience, someone who's been playing the game and is willing to compete for a championship and has done it before. Look, like she said more, but here's the gist. Here's why I don't have an issue of everything what Angel Reese said. We've seen NBA players make comments about their team when they're bad. We've even seen them go as far as demand a trade. But yet, when we talk about Angel Reese, it feels like the narrative changes. And that could change for a plethora of reasons. But here's why I defend Angel Reese. Just last season, this team, it was 13-27, and you fired Teresa Witherspoon. And Angel Reese was on the roster. Angel Reese at that point was a rookie. Now, the team before in 2023, they were 18-22. So what's my point? My point is that Angel Reese is not wrong because this is a bigger issue. And Chicago has to understand. I understand where Angel Reese is coming from because NBA players demand it all the time. Well, I want out. Sorry about that, folks. Sorry about that, folks. My stomach, took over that conversation. But But the thing with Angel Reese is, and to kind of put a button on the point, is that think of the NFL. Remember when Myles Garrett, they're talking about, he wants to be out of Cleveland, and all of a sudden he got a new deal. Star play, it's like the Beauty and the Beast. It's a tale as old as time. Star players want out when the organization's not great. But what's different for Angel Reese, she's calling it out in her second season. What she's saying is that she's not going to settle for mediocrity in her career. And she wants to win championships. Name a player. I don't care what sport it is. that doesn't want to win if you're a star player? I don't get it. I think, and then you suspend her for a half, then for the get. Like, no, I understand that the comments may be tough, but Chicago, you have to understand, you drafted Angel Reese, and you got to do better. And I'm not saying firing Teresa Witherspoon was a great decision, because I'm going to give you a name. I don't know if Tyler Marsh is going to survive the season or not, if he's going to be one and done. But I said this name, I tweeted this, and I'll say it right here. I don't understand why Lisa Leslie is not a head coach in the WNBA. Because she's going to the Big Three. She's shown great success. She literally worked with Angel Reese, I believe, and then rivaled. Like, imagine this. Imagine Lisa Leslie, not just one of the greatest WNBA players, but one of the greatest basketball players, especially in my generation. Part of that great 1996 team that were beating the brakes off everybody across the world. She was a part of that team. She's a terrific head coach. Now, I know reports say that she may want to get, because she's been turned down, and I don't understand it, because we've seen with Becky Hammond's the model. Yeah, she went to the WNBA, but Becky Hammond played in this league, and she's a championship winning coach. Why not get Lisa Leslie? Lisa Leslie has coaching experience. And I can't, and to me, it boggles my mind, because it's not like in the NBA. Listen, we've seen some of your favorite players as coaches, as head coaches, like, it's not good. It's not good. But we're talking about Lisa Leslie, who's proven she can coach. And I'm not trying to advocate fire Tyler Marsh. What I'm conjecturing is that Angel Reese wants better, and you punish her by sitting her down. It's like, you should want a player on your team that wants better from an organizational standpoint. Because to me, the issue is not in coaching. It's not about drafting. And Tarika also, she nailed this on the head. The draft is the last thing the Chicago Sky should be focused on. It's about cleaning up this organization. If you got to get rid of the executive, if you got to start firing people, do it. Because if you want to keep Angel Reese, she's going to go into the offseason and she's going to want to be traded. There's expansion teams. There's an expansion team in Portland. There's expansion teams in Toronto. There's an expansion. And I could argue, maybe if she wants to win championships, what if the Las Vegas Aces call? What if, like I said, what if my Seattle Storm make a phone call? What if teams around the league are going to call about Angel Reese this offseason? Because unless Chicago shows a clear vision of the future, not just next season, for the next maybe 5, I'm not mad at Angel Reese. We could be like, listen, maybe the way she approached it may not be ideal for some, but you should want better. And when you're in a position like Angel Reese, you have a voice in that organization that wants to be better. And she wants to be better. If she didn't care, she'd sit down and she wouldn't say a word. But it's something about that organization she picked up. Maybe at some point this season, maybe she picked up her rookie season, but let's just say maybe she picked up something this season. Like, maybe the teammate thing, maybe that could be an issue. Maybe that can be addressed behind closed door. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to sit here and be upset at Angel Reese for wanting better, because we've seen NBA players demand better. Star players demand better. And the mere fact that we're having this conversation makes it boggles my mind. And I'm going to end with this. We have to have started a conversation stop disrespecting Angel Reese. Okay? Because like I said, if you know ball, she's been a great rebounder her entire basketball career. LSU, when she went from Maryland, before she transferred to LSU, she's been a great rebounder. The scoring will come with it. Y'all, you wanted to be this elite thing. This is her second season, and she's showing you. And that's why I say when I saw her work with Lisa Leslie, one of the greatest centers, not just in WNBA history. You could argue maybe the greatest WNBA center who ever played in the league, and one of the greats in basketball history in terms of generationally. She's going to get better at that. And that's what boggles my mind, is that why in the world is Lisa Leslie not considered as a head coach in the WNBA? Becky Hammon, yeah, she went to the NBA, dear. Yeah, that's cool. But who had success in that league in the WNBA? And no disrespect, I'm not trying to slam Becky Hammon's career in the WNBA. But Lisa Leslie? MVP Lisa? And you're learning from her? What could go wrong? She proved to you in the big three she could coach. Nancy Lieberman, she can coach. All I'm saying is that for a league, this is the same conversation we need to also have. And we'll probably have it on another conversation, have somebody else on to have it as well. But we got to start having the conversation, because we talk about like how race in the NFL, we talk about like the coaches. There are great female coaches out there. I just gave you two. Like Stephanie White is like, despite that, like she got that team to the playoffs, and they're going to be without Caitlin Clark. The job that Lynette Roberts is doing with the Sparks, keeping them in the playoff hunt in her first season, is impressive. All I'm saying is that expand the search WNBA. There's a lot of things going on in the WNBA. Hopefully we'll get more time to talk about it. But listen, the takeaways. Listen, Angel Reese ain't wrong. Hire Lisa Leslie and understand what Angel Reese said. If she didn't care, she wouldn't say that. Because it's like this. If your best friend sees you screwing up, it does the same thing. Are they really a friend? If Angel Reese didn't care about Chicago, she just sat back and said nothing. But it's because she cared. We could argue maybe the approach, but I'm not going to. She didn't say nothing wrong. She didn't say nothing out of line. It's like, let's have that conversation, because she's doing an amazing job under the circumstances. And her and Camila Cardoso could be the great 1-2 duo in this league for the next decade in Chicago, if they can fix whatever the kerfluffle's going on. So, speaking of kerfluffle, ain't no more messing around. That's the Sports in the World podcast for this episode. Once again, like, listen, and subscribe to this episode, every episode of the Sports in the World podcast. And once again, next week, we're going to probably talk more NFL, WNBA playoffs around the corner, more college, and sneaking a little wrestling. Hopefully we'll have a guest on. We'll be able to talk with them as well. But until I see and or hear you again next time, I'm the Darius. Be real, be you, be blessed, and be safe from all here from the Sports and the World podcast.